Hey, welcome to our channel. Make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss our latest content.
It was in the crisp air of October that I first felt the shift, a subtle change in the atmosphere of our home, a dissonance in the melody of our life together. 7 years of marriage to Dahlia had been a symphony, full of crescendos and quiet moments, yes, but always built on a foundation of profound trust. At least, that's what I had believed. Dahlia was my beautiful, chaotic masterpiece. She was spontaneous, a whirlwind of laughter and energy. Pause. And I loved that about her. I found it utterly charming. The way she'd burst through the door after work, words tumbling out of her, stories about her office, gossip from her friends, a funny conversation she'd overheard at the cafe. Sometimes I would just smile, listening more to the music of her presence than the actual words. But that month, October, the music began to sound different. Off-key. Dahlia started going out more. It began with a Friday. She claimed she was exhausted from the week, desperate to unwind with her friends. I understood. Of course, I did. She left around 7. A quick kiss on my cheek, saying she was having dinner with Melissa and Kate, but she came back late. Much later than usual. It was already past 1 in the morning when I heard the key in the lock. The first sign was the sound. A soft, suppressed laugh in the hallway. The way she whispered something to herself, as if replaying a private joke, trying to contain a joy that wasn't meant for me. When she finally stepped into the dim light of our bedroom, the scent came with her. It was a mix of mild alcohol and a perfume I had never known. It was strong, striking, with a deep, woody note that felt utterly foreign. Dahlia, my Dahlia, had always been faithful to her own scent, a light, floral fragrance that smelled of spring and innocence. This was another world entirely. She moved with a practiced, almost theatrical nonchalance. She slipped off her shoes by the door, went straight to the bathroom, the sound of her toothbrush moving quick and sharp. She lay down in bed as if expecting no questions, her back turned to me. I observed in silence, but inside me, something had ignited. It wasn't the hot, roaring fire of jealousy, not yet. It was something colder, sharper. It was intuition, that quiet, persistent feeling that doesn't need evidence to make itself known. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Even as she tried so desperately to pretend everything was the same. The next morning, she made breakfast. Just like always. She served the toast, poured the orange juice, chattered about the city traffic as if it were just another Saturday. I tried to mask my unease. I wanted to watch. To observe, to convince myself this was an isolated incident, and not the beginning of a pattern. But a pattern is exactly what it became. The following week, another outing. This time, it was a birthday dinner for a colleague. "It'll be quick, Eli," she promised, adjusting her earrings in the mirror. "I'll be back by 10. Midnight passed. Then 1 o'clock. Nothing. I called her. It went straight to voicemail. I sent a text. The little notification showed it had been read, but there was no reply. Just a deafening, digital silence. At 2 in the morning, she finally arrived. This time, there were no quiet laughs, no strange perfume, just silence. The kind of heavy, weighted silence that only exists when someone is rehearsing their lines, thinking carefully before they speak. She said the dinner had run late, that they'd ended up going to another place afterward. Her explanation was a flat, lifeless thing. I pretended to believe her. I stored it away in my mind, like a man assembling a puzzle without the picture on the box, collecting pieces one by one, hoping they would eventually form a coherent image. But it was on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday that the most important piece slammed into place. Finn, my best friend since we were teenagers, called me. His voice on the other end of the line had a strange hesitation, a discomfort that was completely unlike him. "Man, Elias, I need to tell you something." Then, pause. "And maybe you'll think I'm overreacting, but I saw Dahlia last night. At a bar downtown, the Gilded Lantern." I said nothing. My throat had closed up. "She was with a guy," he continued, his words careful. "They looked really close, Eli. Laughing together, leaning in. His hand was on her back. I don't know, maybe it was a coworker, but it didn't look like a normal friendship." The call left me frozen. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. My breath came in short, shallow gasps. I tried to form a question, but no sound would come out. Finn filled the silence. He gave me the name of the bar again. The time he saw them, he said he'd thought about taking a picture, but it felt invasive. He preferred to talk to me first, man to man. I thanked him for his honesty, my voice a strained whisper. Then I hung up. I sat there for a long time, motionless, just staring at my own reflection in the blank, dark screen of my phone. That night, as Dahlia showered, the rhythmic sound of the water hitting the tiles was a steady, indifferent beat against the rising chaos inside me. Everything Finn had said, it all started spinning in my mind. The late nights, the perfume, the bar, the ignored messages. None of it was a coincidence. What if it was true? What if she was really seeing someone else? What if I had been living a lie, a background character in the story of my own marriage? I turned my head and looked at the half-open bathroom door, steam curling into the bedroom. And in that moment, in the quiet darkness of the room, I made the decision that would change everything. I wouldn't drown in questions. I wouldn't wait for answers that might never come honestly. It was time to act. It was time to look the truth directly in the eye, without filters or assumptions, even if it hurt, even if it tore me apart, because there was something worse than being betrayed. It was continuing to live beside a stranger who wore my wife's face. Suspicion was no longer a fleeting thought. It became a permanent resident in my mind, a shadow that followed me through every room of our house. After Finn's call, I couldn't look at Dahlia the same way. Our conversations grew shorter, my glances more distant. Everything that once felt like comfortable routine now seemed calculated, rehearsed, and even without physical proof, something deep inside me already knew. But feeling wasn't enough. I needed to see, to confirm it with my own eyes, no matter how much it would destroy me. The day I decided to hire a private investigator, it felt like I was signing a death certificate. The death certificate of my marriage. But I was so tired of living in a fog of maybes and what-ifs. His name was Miles Whitaker. Experienced, direct, no nonsense. During our first meeting, I explained the situation calmly, but he saw right through my measured words. He'd seen it all before, the doubting husbands, the silent wives, and the avalanche waiting to happen. I gave him the few details I had. The odd hours, the names of the friends Dahlia claimed to be with. He took quick notes, promised total discretion, and assured me he would have concrete results within a few days. They were the longest, most agonizing days of my life. Anxiety was a constant, bitter taste in my mouth. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, wondering if she was with him at that very moment. The simple buzz of her phone on the nightstand made my heart leap into my throat. I tried to maintain a facade of normalcy, but every time I saw her smile at her screen, my stomach twisted into a painful knot. One Friday night, as she was getting ready for another night with the girls, I pretended to go to bed early. I stayed silent, watching her through a crack in the door. She looked beautiful, dressed with a care and attention I hadn't seen in months. She sprayed on that new, woody perfume, fixed her hair meticulously, and hummed a soft, happy tune to herself. She looked like a woman in love. Pause. Just not with me. The next morning, Miles called. His voice was dry, professional. I need to deliver the material in person. We met at a discreet cafe downtown. I arrived early, watching the world move on outside the window, cars passing, people laughing, all of them living in a different reality from mine. When Miles arrived, he didn't waste any time. He placed a thick manila envelope on the table between us. I prefer to let the images speak for themselves, he said, crossing his arms. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a series of photographs. Each one was a fresh stab to the heart. There was Dahlia, smiling. A radiant, genuine smile I hadn't seen directed at me in a long, long time. She was with a man I'd never seen before. Tall, dark-haired, with a well-groomed beard. In the first photo, they were at a restaurant, sitting side by side, sharing dessert from the same plate. In another, they were walking down the sidewalk, holding hands, like a real couple. The next one showed them entering a hotel together. Hours later, another photo of them exiting, with the same carefree air, as if the world didn't exist outside of their little bubble. But the last image hurt the most. Dahlia was in the passenger seat of his car, her head resting peacefully on his shoulder, while he caressed her hair with one hand. It wasn't just lust. It wasn't a fleeting affair. This was affection. This was intimacy. Miles explained that the man's name was Gideon Mitchell, an entrepreneur in the event industry. He had a reputation for intense, short-lived relationships. I can continue monitoring if you want, Miles said quietly. But this This is more than enough to prove involvement. I thanked him, my voice barely a whisper. I paid him for his work and left with the envelope tucked under my arm like I was carrying my own sentence. That night, sleep was impossible. I spread the photos out on our kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared thousands of meals. I relived each scene in my mind, trying to find some logic, some reason that could possibly justify this. There was none. There was only the raw, brutal reality. Dahlia had been lying to me for months. She was building a separate life, a separate love. And, in that moment, everything we had built together, the plans, the dreams, the house, our future, it all crumbled into dust. As dawn approached, I did something I never thought I would do. Dahlia was still sleeping, her face serene and peaceful in the early morning light, a stark contrast to the ugliness of her lies. I picked up her phone. I typed in the 4-digit code she'd used for years. 0814. Our anniversary. The irony was a physical pain in my chest. The portal to the truth opened. The messages with Gideon were right there. Long conversations, intimate and full of a secret language I didn't understand. She sent him pictures of herself smiling. She wrote things like, "I miss your smell." He wrote, "I can't stand hiding anymore. I want you all to myself." They talked about traveling together, starting over, building something new, and then I saw it. The worst part, they mocked me. They laughed at my naivety, my trusting nature. They called me the safe backup plan, as if I were just a convenient piece of furniture in the background of their passionate affair. I read it all, every single word, without shedding a single tear. But inside, each word was a blade, cutting slowly, methodically, through everything I thought was real. I closed the phone and put it back on the nightstand. I walked into the bathroom and stared at my reflection in the mirror. I saw a man who was broken, yes, hurt, absolutely, but whole. And right there, looking into my own eyes, I made a promise to myself. I would not let this betrayal define me. She had made her choices. Now, it was my turn to make mine. I didn't go to work that morning. I just waited. I sat at the kitchen table, a mug of black coffee growing cold in my hands, and watched the clock tick. 7:20 a.m. I heard the rustle of blankets, the soft sound of her footsteps in the hallway. She entered the kitchen, her hair tied up in a messy bun, wearing the old, worn-out sweatshirt she loved to wear at home. She was holding her phone. Seeing me sitting there, she smiled. A bright, casual smile, as if nothing in the world was wrong. "Good morning," she said, leaning down to give me a quick, absent-minded kiss on my forehead. She went to the fridge, humming, looking for something to make for breakfast. I remained silent. My eyes were fixed on her. My hands were clenched together under the table. My heart was a steady, cold drum. She turned around. "Scrambled eggs? Or just toast?" "I'm not hungry," I said. My voice was flat, devoid of any emotion. She paused. She knew my routines. Breakfast was sacred to me. "Are you okay, Eli?" she asked, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. And that's when I looked at her. I really looked at her, with a gaze that didn't shout, but cut, a look that carried the crushing weight of everything I had discovered just hours before. "Do you love him?" The question hung in the air between us. No preamble, no context, no raised voice. Just the question. Dahlia's brow furrowed. She gave a small, nervous laugh, trying to play dumb. "What? What are you talking about?" I repeated it, this time, with more force. Each word was a heavy stone. "Do you love Gideon?" She froze. The name, spoken aloud in our kitchen, shattered any possibility of pretense. Her eyes darted around the room, as if searching for an escape route. But there was nowhere to go. There was only me, and the truth, standing between us. She tried to deny it, her voice trembling. "Elias, I don't know who that is." "Stop," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "I have the photos, Dahlia. I read the messages. All of them." I told her everything. I knew about the hotels, the meetings in his car, the shared coffees and the promises whispered over the phone. I told her I knew about the disdain in her words, the jokes made at my expense, the plans she was making for a future that didn't include me. Then, I fell silent. She approached the table, her composure crumbling. Her voice began to falter. She started talking about how things had changed between us, how she'd felt lonely, how Gideon had just appeared during a confusing time. She was trying to justify the unjustifiable. I listened without saying a word. Every excuse she offered seemed emptier than the last. When she finally looked at me, tears in her eyes, and said, "I still love you, Eli," I laughed. It was a short, cold, humorless sound. "How?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "How does someone who loves do what you did? How does someone who loves build an entire other life, for months, writing promises to another man while sharing a bed with the person they swore fidelity to?" She tried to reach for my hand. I pulled it away, as if her touch would burn me. I stood up, walked over to a cabinet, and took out the thick manila envelope. I handed it to her without a word. Her hands trembled as she pulled out the contents. The photos. The reports. Printed copies of the most incriminating messages. And for the first time, she truly wept. Tears of shame, of despair, of being caught. She begged for a chance. She said she could fix it, that she would leave Gideon, erase everything, start over. I looked at her, and I felt nothing but a profound, chilling emptiness. "You already destroyed everything, Dahlia," I said calmly. "You did it all by yourself." She pleaded. She said she loved me, that she was weak, that she regretted it. She tried to bring up old memories. Our trips, our inside jokes, the history we had built. I listened to it all with a serene expression. Not because I was at peace, but because I had reached a point beyond doubt or dilemma. The decision had been made the moment I read her words on the phone screen, the ones she sent to him. "You're everything I've ever wanted. I can't wait to be yours completely." I walked to the front door and opened it. "You can pack your things today," I said. "From now on, we will no longer share a roof, or a life." She just sat there on the kitchen floor, her face buried in her knees, sobbing. I didn't console her. I walked to our bedroom, picked up her phone from the dresser, and placed it on the table in front of her. "You should probably respond to Gideon," I said, my voice cold. "You're free now. You can go live everything you so desperately wanted." Before I walked out, I stopped and looked her in the eyes one last time. "You didn't just betray me with another man, Dahlia. You betrayed everything I thought I was to you." I closed the door firmly behind me. I walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and for a few long minutes, I just breathed, in and out, and for the first time in months, I felt like I was finally reclaiming ownership of my own story. I no longer needed answers, because the only thing that mattered now was the harsh, clean, and devastating freedom that comes after the truth. The days that followed felt like a vacuum, a stretched out, silent emptiness. I spent weeks moving through the world like a ghost. The noise of the city, the demands of work, the concerned messages from friends asking how I was doing, it all felt distant, muffled. I replied sparingly. I preferred the company of my own thoughts. They felt more real than any external voice. The first thing I did was sell the house. I had to. Every corner held a memory now tainted by the lie. Dahlia's scent still lingered in the closets. The faint coffee stain on the kitchen counter was hers. The indent on her side of the bed. It was suffocating. It was like trying to live inside a story that had already been written by someone else. Selling the house wasn't just a practical decision. It was an act of severance. It was like ripping out the final page of a book whose ending I already knew by heart. I moved to a small, quiet town on the coast. A place where no one knew my name, my past, or the wreckage I had left behind. I rented a simple apartment with a view of the ocean. I started working from home, setting my own pace. There was no one to please, no one to perform for. I learned to do things my own way again. I cooked slowly, savoring the process. I took long walks on the beach, the sound of the waves washing away the noise in my head. I read entire books without interruption. I started noticing the small things again. The sound of a dog barking down the street. The cheerful good morning from the woman at the corner market. The incredible freedom of living without walking on eggshells. Without analyzing every word, every silence, for a hidden meaning. Slowly, piece by piece, I began to rebuild myself from the ash of my old life. Meanwhile, as I was slowly finding my footing, Dahlia was unraveling. Finn kept me updated, in brief, reluctant messages. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, she moved in with Gideon, the same man for whom she had risked everything, the man she claimed was her great, overwhelming romance. But the brilliant shine she swore she had found began to tarnish under the harsh light of reality. Gideon, once so intense and charming, revealed himself to be impatient and allergic to commitment. The thrill of the affair was gone, and what was left was just messy. He didn't want the responsibility of a real relationship. He only wanted the good parts. Dahlia, who had traded a stable, loving life for a passionate fairy tale, found herself treated as a temporary amusement. She was betrayed, just as she had betrayed, and with the same cruel indifference. One day, Gideon was simply gone. No warning, no note, not even a goodbye text. She was left alone in an apartment that wasn't hers, surrounded by the consequences of choices she could never undo. That's when she started calling me. Once, twice, then dozens of times. She sent long, rambling text messages, confessing her mistakes, saying she finally understood what I must have felt, saying she truly loved me, that she just wanted one chance to apologize, looking me in the eyes. I read the first message. I saw the pain, the regret, the desperation. Then I deleted it, and I never replied, because some wounds don't heal with words. They heal with distance. Months bled into one another. Ashley, I heard through the grapevine, was trying to piece her life back together. She was living in a small apartment, had little contact with her old friends, and avoided social media like the plague. She was ashamed of how spectacularly everything had fallen apart. Gideon had vanished for a while, but he reappeared weeks later, bolder, more confident, and this time, with someone new by his side. That was the part that finally shattered what was left of Dahlia's world. He had started dating Tessa, her younger sister. At first, she thought it had to be a cruel joke, a way to provoke her, but it wasn't a game. Soon, Tessa's social media was filled with pictures of them. Gideon at a family barbecue, sitting on the same patio furniture from Dahlia's childhood, Gideon smiling next to their mother. The scene was a special kind of torture, designed just for her. Dahlia tried to talk to her sister. She warned her. She told her plainly that the man was a master of illusion, a manipulator who promised worlds only to disappear when he got bored. Tessa just rolled her eyes. She accused Dahlia of being bitter and jealous. "He's different with me," Tessa insisted. "We're in love." Losing control, Dahlia confronted Gideon directly. She unleashed all the venom she had held back for months. She called him a parasite, a coward. She screamed that he had destroyed her life and was now infiltrating her family like it was some kind of